Yo, step in the vibe, it's the plug with Toya T. Unlocking dreams, we got the master key. We talking real talk, yeah, your destiny. Sis, you got the juice, let it pour, you see. Glow up vibes, stacking cash, what's good? Mind on right, we moving through the hood. Love and grind, keep it real, no cap.
The plug with Toya T, now picture that.
No ceilings here, we breaking through.
The plug with Toya T, got the game for you.
Big goals, big dreams, yeah, we staying true.
Tap in weekly, we got the vibe on cue.
Glow up vibes, stacking cash, what's good? Mind on right, we moving through the hood. Love and grind, keep it real, no cap.
The plug with Toya T, now picture that.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Toya T, and do we have a show for you today? We're going to be talking about trade talks from Cincy to Ghana, because we understand that all of these things are changing, and we have to make sure that we're staying up on the changes. I have to make sure that I thank our platinum sponsor, Leafy Products, out of Columbus, Ohio, and I have an honorable mention for the Minority Business Accelerator as another sponsor of our show today. And with that, I would like to welcome in my guests, because we have something to talk about. Hello. Welcome in.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and have you guys just do a brief introduction. Over here, we typically do ladies first, but I'm just going to throw it up, man. Whoever wants to go first can go first.
Go ahead, man.
Thanks for nominating me, Robert, and volunteering me. My name is Manny Addo, and I'm originally from the country Ghana. That is where the accent comes from, just in case you're wondering. But I've lived in Cincinnati for the last 20 years. And I continue, to call Cincinnati home as well. Grew up in Ghana, spent the first half of my life in Ghana, went to school in Ghana, and worked in Ghana before I came into the United States. Came to school here and spent the last 20 years working in Cincinnati. So I primarily have a good understanding and knowledge of both cities, and I'm looking forward to sharing my experience with you.
And what's the name of your company?
My name of my company is Natural Shea Care, but we like to go with True Shea because True Shea is the brand. And so most people know us by True Shea. And just let you know, I founded the company in my basement some 5 years ago. By the grace of God, we're in over 3,000 stores in the United States right now.
That's awesome. We're glad you're here with us tonight, Manny. And I heard that I'm pronouncing your name wrong. So how am I supposed to be pronouncing it? It's Manny?
You got it right.
Everybody in Cincinnati is pronouncing his name wrong, but we're going to get it right. Manny.
It's Manny.
We'll work on that.
Okay, well, go ahead, Robert. Do a quick introduction for us.
Yeah, Robert Bell. Born and raised in Cincinnati, lived in Washington D.C. for a while, but came back after I went to college and got my master's here. I've been working in the field. Well, I'm director of economic inclusion and equity for Hamilton County. Been with them going on 8 years now, but I've been in this field over 25 years in various organizations, including United Way of Greater Cincinnati, Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority, and other places. So I brought that experience to Hamilton County, and it really was brought here to help Hamilton County improve its economic inclusion in two major areas, human resources, but also in purchasing and procurement. And we got some real things going here that I'm going to tell you about.
Absolutely. Well, we got some great people here today to drop some little nuggets of knowledge for us. So I want you to tell us a little bit about your connection to commerce. And so when I was thinking about this show, I thought, well, we have all of these tariffs coming in and all these things changing in terms of how we move things across the country. And I thought, well, there's a lot of things that could be produced or imported or exported from different places, and Ghana being one of them. So talk to us a little bit about your experience with trade, just commerce in general. And I think we'll start with Robert, because you can kind of give us that that lay of the land of
Okay.
what it was like when you first got here, and
Okay.
how did you kind of create more opportunities for folks here in Cincinnati in particular?
Right. Well, and again, I'm really, really glad to be, part of the podcast, and I enjoy doing this thing, and I'm doing it a lot, and that's on purpose to get the word out about what's possible when your program is working for you. And but we're in turbulent times now, when all this debate about DEI and economic inclusion or diversity of any sort. So recently, some of my colleagues across the country and I decided we were going to change the way we do our talks. So I'm focused on all my talks now about real impact on real people, and having them understand what the true purpose of economic inclusion is, and that is to ensure that everyone has a fair opportunity to compete. And the key verb I want you to think about is compete, because that's never brought up in this whole debate, but that's what we really do to help companies do that in Hamilton County. And I can tell you a little bit more about how we do it, but we have a strategy that we put together called PSPE, which is policies, strategies, practices, and expectations. And and some experts that I talked to said, Robert, that's your blueprint for all these things you got going. And they're absolutely right. And I've been spending, and it's taken me almost 8 years to get some of the successes we're having. But it's really necessary for people to really understand. So I'm talking a lot. I'm doing podcasts, I'm doing presentations, I'm working with groups, and we're using the theme of to compete. And people are coming up to me afterwards and saying, Robert, you really are helping me understand the true value of economic inclusion. And you've set the record straight for me. Black, white, people come up and say that after we really talk about it, because that's when it makes sense to them of what we're doing and why we need to do it.
Right. And you said we're in turbulent times, right? We all are seeing that. But what's booming right now? Like, what commerce is actually on the uprise, that you're seeing? Is it construction? Like, who's winning out here? Because somebody is.
Well, a lot of people are winning.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are still winning. There's still a lot of people kind of left out. And one of the things that we do in Hamilton County, we now have goals for, minority, women, and small businesses in all our solicitations. And it took us years to do that. And we had to do a disparity study, which a lot of people don't know about, but that's a massive research project that you have to do to show that there's truly significant, statistically significant disparities in how we utilize minorities and women and small businesses in all the work. As a matter of fact, we did a tally of our spending for Hamilton County for 2024, and found out that we spent $58.2 million in all kinds of spending. Right.
Doing what?
And everything: construction, goods and services, professional services. And I can talk more about that, but it's booming in all those areas. I mean, it still is. I mean, we spent $58 million last year.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And when I started here, our spend with small and minority and women-owned businesses was just in the hundreds of thousands. But in 2024, minority companies received awards of $9.8 million. That's the first time that's ever happened, and it happened because we have some things in place that help make it happen. But the opportunities are there, and we do a lot of stuff to help people get ready for it. I get people to like I asked you before we started about registering with us as a vendor. And getting on our bold contractor directory, because when I asked people, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but when I came here in 2018, I talked to all the directors and told them what we're doing and the purpose of my department, and I talked to purchasing people, and I said, well, how are you doing with women and minority businesses? And they're like, well, I'm not sure we know who they are. So I started what's called the bold contractor directory, and that's what I talked to you about. And now that bold contractor directory. And it's a directory that anybody can get into, but you need to be in there and those kind of things. I want your viewers to know that they should be with us, because now that directory has over almost 1,000 companies, and it's now the Hamilton County organizational vendor list. And not only are the purchasing people using it, but contractors are using it to find subcontractors and help. Human resource groups in Cincinnati are using it, all the chambers. a lot of places, and we have 49 municipalities that are part of cities and townships and stuff that are part of Hamilton County. And now even the municipalities are being told about the Bold Group. So that's the first thing, is to get registered with us and registered in our software, the procurement software, so you can get notices of solicitations that come out. Because anybody who wants to do work with us has to know you're not going to make any money unless you're responding to quotes, bids, and proposals. And we teach, when we do a training called How to Do Business with Hamilton County, which we teach people how to do those things.
Absolutely. Okay. And so when you're talking about this bold list, is it minorities only, or is it minorities and women?
It's everybody. It's everybody. But
Okay.
it's the first time Hamilton County had a vendor list that said who was small minority and women owned. Because I wanted the purchasing people in Hamilton County to know who they were picking and not picking. And it really enlightened folks to what the true resources out there are. And again, we had some policies change where in certain instances you had to go to the bold list first, and we got some practices and policies changed to do that. And now we have a policy that all solicitations, construction, professional services, and goods and services, all solicitation has goals for minorities and women in small businesses. They had never done that before either.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean,
because what gets measured gets done. That's what I always tell people.
Oh yeah.
If you're not measuring it, then I'm sure you're not doing it.
Right, because when I came in here, nobody could tell me how much Hamilton County in 2018. Nobody could tell me how much Hamilton County was spending on goods and services. I mean, I went to the top CFO, and he had to look it up in his computer, but nobody really discussed it or knew about it. So I started a program in 2018, which I called the Quarterly Departmental Expenditure, Economic Inclusion Expenditure Reports, and that showed which departments were spending their money where and with who, and we did demographics on it. Majority companies, minority, women, small, and if they said zero in some of those areas, the report said zero.
Now, do you guys have a report of where you're getting any type of commodity from? Are there commodity groups, and are you importing anything from an international standpoint, or is that happening?
I think that happens occasionally, but I don't really have some data on that. But that's something we can look into, because we spend a lot on goods and services, just materials and supplies. I mean, energy, all the types of oils and fluids and stuff that we need. Because we have several departments that have huge fleets of trucks, dump trucks, vans, cars, and everything. So energy we're a big consumer of energy of all types.
So Manny, as obviously you came here, would you say 20 years ago or 30 years ago? Which one it was?
20.
Not that long, 20.
Yeah. 20, okay. I added 10 years. Okay, so when you got here 10 years ago, obviously I always feel like when you go to a new place, it changes your perspective, right? And then when you go back to the old place, then you take the stuff from the new place and you start to well, they don't have this over here. We might need to figure out how to get this over there. Have you had those moments? And if so, what is something that you think Cincinnati could use from Ghana and vice versa?
Thank you again, Toya. But before I do that, I want to say something real quick to the DEI question and the DEI thing you said earlier on, because I get a lot because people are like, how are you affected? Is DEI affecting you? And I want to say that it's important that we show up as great businesses. I say that, Kalasada White says it, Steve Hightower said it there yesterday, that we are good businesses, we just happen to be Black. And so, because if you're going in and you're going to do business, irrespective of the color of your skin, if you don't do a good job, nobody's going to give an opportunity. So it's important that we go in there. Typical example, my business, despite all these DI issues, has doubled this year. Now, I got into Albertsons. They don't even have a DEI department.
Who is that? Albertsons?
Albertsons. They gave me 1,600 stores. They don't even have a DEI department, but they've seen the good work that I have done. So it's important that we go out there, show up every day and do the job, and then irrespective, DEI helps without a doubt, but we got to show up. Now, with your question, Yes, I think that part of my success is to be able to have the best of both worlds. So I came into Cincinnati, and there were a lot of things that I learned and what brought in my horizon. And there are sort of some things that I brought from Ghana that I tweaked and added to it to help me grow. When I go back to Ghana, I do the same thing. So for example, typical example is shea butter. When I was in Ghana, we had no value for shea butter. Like, we have so much shea butter that it wasn't even a thing until I got here one day in Columbus. I'm talking to a friend of mine. He's like, I sell shea butter. I'm like, who is buying shea butter? He's like, no, it's so I went online, looked at the market size of shea butter in the United States, and that's when the light bulb went on. Long story short, I'm bringing shea butter from Ghana, and we are distributing over 3,000 stores in the United States. So that's one, great opportunity, and one thing that there are so many other things, so many agricultural products, coconut oil, palm oil, avocado, all kinds of agricultural products that can be brought into the United States, and vice versa. So I've also noticed that, for example, professional services, consulting services, HR services, it's a little more advanced in the United States than in Africa. So if you go in with a consulting service into Africa, like Toya now, you'll probably be doing pretty well. Used products, used gadgets, old cars. The car that is old here is probably almost brand new somewhere else. So you have used phones, so things like that. So that has really, really opened my eyes, to be able to do business between the two countries.
And so when you think about all of these tariffs, because I know one of my clients, they were looking at bamboo out of Ghana. And I've been told that bamboo is pretty plentiful in Ghana. Are there things like that? I think cocoa or...
Yes, cocoa is a lot, Ghana is the, second largest exporter of cocoa, which is the main ingredient of chocolate, timber, oils, minerals, and all those things. And I keep on saying that in as much as we have the 10% tariff, I feel like at the end of the day, the United States consumer is going to bear the increase, because we don't have shea butter doesn't grow in the United States.
Yeah.
So even if you put a 10% tariff on it, it's going to add 50 cents, 80 cents, $1. I don't know, some people will not use shea butter, but by and large, people will continue to use shea butter. Avocado, 70% of avocado comes from Mexico. We don't have a whole lot of avocado here. Are we going to stop eating avocado, or are we going to? So I feel like we're just going to pass it on eventually to the United States consumer, who is going to be, holding the bag in their hands.
But I mean, I think there are some things that people will pay more for, and then I think there are some things that people will just be like, "Well, I guess we're not going to have it." Because
without a doubt, it would impact it a little bit. But sometimes, too, the comparison is some of the things coming from here is also coming through China, and so somewhere, in as much as we have 10%, China has 35%, and so if we're bringing the same product into the United States, we are at least a little ahead of it. But no, it will definitely impact people's purchases, because not everybody has so much disposable income to be increasing prices and buying all kinds of things if it's 20% higher.
Right. That disposable income is going to go away real fast.
Exactly.
But Toy, I'd like to say, just add to what Manny's talking about. I think it's very important. Well, one of the things I like about Manny is that he's real persistent, and he really has a convincing approach to people. And what I'm finding out, and what I'm doing, we started a program last year called Mentorship Partnership Initiative, because I went to some of these big primes and I said, you guys are making a lot of money for us, but I need to widen the net to make sure that some of these smaller companies get a bigger piece of the pie. Those millions and millions we spend each year, and some of them have agreed to help. But what I realized, and because my background is federal procurement, so I met a lot of small minority women-owned businesses 8 years, when I was 8 years there, but there were a number who were doing well, and they had a trajectory that was pretty steady going upward. But the thing I realized, what they had, and after questioning them, is that a lot of them had alliances and partnerships. And so, we started the Mentorship Partnership Program last year, and it's helping these small contractors learn how, because it's about relationships. If you're talking real money, you're talking relationships. You know what I mean? Like Manny has established with Kroger and the other one that he mentioned, he has established great relationship with them. You got to give good services. You got to hit the nail on the head, and with your services. But it's all about making that connection, which a lot of small and minority-owned businesses, they didn't even know how they didn't even know that large primes have pre-qualification requirements that you could fill out. And they never knew that you had to fill those out and didn't know how to do it. So now they're learning how to do that kind of stuff. So it's about giving the knowledge.
It's also about knowing what they can do for you as well. And I had to really push Manny to leverage Kroger, because I think a lot of times you think, oh, well, I don't want to ask too much because they already did this for me, or they already did this for me. But the reality is that if you're doing this for them, they're doing it for a reason. So there should be something that should be coming back, reciprocating that effort, because I always say it's either the pimp or the performer, right? So you have to decide which one you are in every situation, every scenario, and either you're performing or you're the pimp. And the reality is that it's a situation where everybody should be winning. Otherwise, it's not a relationship that's going to continue.
Right. It has to be a true partnership, but you're not going to be able to develop that until you have trust and knowledge about each other, and really spend the time to get to know and see what's the best way we can work. And we've got some smaller contractors working with primes in that area. And what I ask primes to do, what I do is I hold a meeting between 8 to 10 vendors who do subcontractor work that the prime always says they need. And then we have a face-to-face meeting, and I asked the prime if they could take a look at 3 to 4 of those 8 to 10 and decide to do more work with, get to know them, vet them, and I asked them to do 1 of 3 things. Either they give them continued support and guidance that they think could help them, they do mentorship, or they do subcontracting. And I've got some primes that are working on all 3. So it's about doing that. It's about, because I talk to my colleagues across the country and other people here. I said, we got to do more than just set goals. We've got to help build relationships. And that's what needs to happen between Africa and United States companies, and vice versa.
Right. And what if you were trying to do business internationally and you had a company that was, trying to get into that space? What advice would you give to them? Whether it's doing business here locally, or whether it's doing business in Ghana or bringing it back and forth, what is some advice that you might give to those businesses outside of partnerships and, those strategic alliances? Is there anything else?
For me, you're asking me, or Manny?
It's one of you guys.
Yeah, I mean, mine is I'm more. We just started the kind of helping them build alliances and partnerships, but I also know that happens a lot in the international trade too. I mean, I just, from my experience in the field, and that Manny would know more about that, but I think we have to start somewhere, because I'm telling people who do the same kind of thing I do is that you have to do more to help these companies to really become true partners, and that's because if you do that, you don't need to hardly set goals. You know what I mean? Like he was saying, Albertson, there's some contractors now that do work for Hamilton County that they've decided their own goals were going to be 20% or more.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the way we really want things to be.
Absolutely. So that you're working towards the same goal, right? Where it's like, okay, because business is better when it does cross over those lines, because if it's only blacks doing business, you're going to get a bias there. If it's only whites doing business, you're going to get a bias there. When you incorporate everybody, that's when you start to really see that those nuances come into effect, because you understand what you're missing out on. You're able to kind of pull pieces and parts.
Well, and also you're putting together the parts that really make up the commerce market. See, when they're divided up, we don't have a complete commerce market. But when you combine that and what we can do internationally with our international allies and alliances and partnerships, then you have full United States and international commerce.
All right, you see the full picture.
Right.
What about you, Manny? When you started importing things in from Ghana, was there anything? I always say you learn more from your failures than you do your successes. Was there anything that kind of crashed and burned, and you're like, man, if I could tell somebody coming after me, this is what I would tell them to do, and this is what I tell them not to do?
So there are a couple of things that, there's the tangible and there are the intangible. Now, it never really happened to me, but it happened to somebody that I was consulting, and it almost killed him, like literally. So this is a typical example. There's this guy in Tanzania, not even Ghana. He's bringing a container of rice, shipping into the United States. Now, for you to bring the rice, you have to put it on pallets. There's a plastic pallet and there's a wooden pallet. Plastic pallet is $500 more expensive than the wooden pallet. Just like all of us, he chose the cheaper one, $500 less. $100,000 container full of rice. Arrives in New York. What he didn't know was that in the United States, they don't accept wooden pallets because wooden pallets are more likely to attract bugs and bees. So it got to the state, it has a wooden pallet. Secondly, instead of bringing the container through New York, he took it through Virginia. Now, two things happened. First, he's using the wrong pallet. Two, he took it through a different port. So it comes through New York. We're all bringing it through New York because in New York, every immigration officer, anybody who works there, is one way or the other associated with an immigrant. They understand that. They know
They're well aware of what?
They are associated with an immigrant. So, for example, if you're bringing shea butter through New York, people in New York have seen shea butter before. They know what shea butter is. If you take that same container through Virginia, they'll be like, shea what? So your chances of getting it, they confiscated his cargo. After 6 months, he took his cargo back to Ghana, lost almost $100,000 because he was trying to save $500. And so those are sort of things that I teach in my consult. And this is one example that continues to, stick out with me.
Yeah, don't be trying to save a penny.
I know exactly.
and lose some thousands.
He don't know. So yeah.
That's a good example, Manny.
Yeah.
So we only have 3 minutes left of the show. I wanted to give you guys a chance to give any, parting words, anything that you wanted to share that you're like, oh, we didn't even get to that, but I really want people to know this.
One for me is, and if I'll go, one for me is just that, I think they have some information they can put on the screen about how to contact Hamilton County and my department. Because we also, when I talk about helping them compete, that's what we're committed to doing. And so to help them compete, they need to get registered as a vendor with us, get listed on our procurement software so they can get notices of solicitations, and then go through the how to do business with Hamilton County training. I do workshops and one-on-ones and group things on how to do that. And one of the things is how to find out opportunities that are coming up that you can prepare for as a direct contractor or a subcontractor. Most of our small and minority-owned companies can't go after the big, $10 to $20 million projects. But those projects, if the prime is doing them and they're subcontracting, then there's subcontracting goals and that they have to achieve when they're putting that together. So I tell them how to use the solicitation thing to get to pre-bid meetings that they do. A lot of minority firms that I've talked to never go to pre-bid meetings for bids or proposals, and that's a must if you know what to do when you go. So we teach them that kind of stuff. So and that's a lot of that stuff is what we do. Again, it's about relationships for a lot of our folks, because I do a program called Getting to Know You real quick, where I have vendors who want to do work for us and have a quick meeting, information only, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, virtual meeting with a purchasing person who they might be able to provide some services that they might purchase in that department. And it's non-committal. It can't be done during any solicitation time and that kind of thing. But that program I started 2 years ago, and it is doing very well because because the purchasing people are learning who's more out there, and the vendors are learning what that department requires of them.
Right. Right. So it's just creating those connections that much more.
I do a lot of that.
Thank you. Thank you. Manny, any final words?
So just a couple of things that I think that one people should understand is you need to understand the culture of wherever country you're going to go and do business with. The culture is very, very important. You may miss one signal and it might just not go well for you. We don't have enough time, so I want to talk about that. We're also looking at how to scale your business. I scaled from 5 stores to 3,000 plus stores. I have a lot of scars to show for that. It's a lot that goes into scaling. How do you finance it? How do you manufacture and all that? But I put all this in my book titled From Africa to 1,500 Kroger Stores. So you can always take a look at that at Kroger on Amazon, and you can read and have enough information about how to start your business.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys showing up for us tonight. With that, we have to say thank you to our sponsors, or we would be remiss. But again, thank you again for joining us. That was a great conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Today's episode of The Plug is sponsored by the following companies. At the platinum level, we have Leafy Products. Leafy Products is the first Black-owned sustainable toilet paper company in Ohio. Do your part to go green and stay clean. Purchase today at getleafyproducts.com. At the gold level, we have the Minority Business Accelerator. Now in its 22nd year, they provide comprehensive business assistance and access to critical resources to grow larger scale African American and Hispanic owned businesses. Its specific mission is to increase economic inclusion and empowerment in the Cincinnati region and beyond by providing customized analysis, resources, and funding to accelerate the growth of scalable minority owned businesses. For more information, go to minoritybusinessaccelerator.com. At the silver level, we have Cybersound Studios. Cybersound Studios is a dynamic music production brand creating original tracks that blend innovation with powerful storytelling. Specializing in making songs for your special moments and your business, they deliver an unforgettable personalized sound experience. Contact them today at Cybersound Studios at proton.me to bring your vision to life. Last but certainly not least, at the bronze level, we have When Tomorrow Never Comes. When Tomorrow Never Comes is a self-help book written to help people overcome childhood trauma and walk into their purpose. You can find When Tomorrow Never Comes on Amazon.com. Take the first step on your healing journey and purchase your copy today. The Plug thanks all of our sponsors for helping us keep you connected.